So the idea of cutting down on car use, it's pretty straightforward when it comes to things like commuting into the city. It's all very well and good because it's a long journey, but less easy when it comes to stuff like, well, I guess like I'm doing now, going to the pool. It's only like a mile away, down the path. It takes a little while to walk there. I don't really want to waste all that extra time. I'd normally drive. That defeats the object of doing it. I might as well not bother doing any of it if I'm going to sort of drive short distances like this. This is the whole point. It's about being organised. So this week I'm going to try and figure out a bit more of a convenient system, some sort of habit I can form with riding the what's now the pub bike to the pool and back on a Wednesday night, to sort of try and just get in the habit of doing that, I guess. So these are and should be really the simplest journeys to make, the little ones, the ones that add up to hundreds if not thousands of miles over the year, that could simply be replaced with a bike, a cheap one like this. And I've discovered so far this evening on the way to the pool that I can ride my bike in a dry road. Well, that's done, job done. Good little pool sesh as per usual, just easing myself back into the familiarity of getting in the pool and riding home now. And you know, the irony is not lost on me. One of the reasons why I'm trying to ride my bike more is exactly the same reason why it's not actually that cold. Mid-November, riding home, it's positively mild really. I should be freezing bloody cold, shouldn't I? But that is a bloody problem. Two things about my childhood that are relevant to this video. One is that 30 years ago, if you were into the environment and talking about reducing pollution and stuff, you were a bit of a hippie. The second thing was, it got to the 10th of November, which is what the day is today, it was bloody freezing. And as somebody that feels the cold and is a bit of a wuss when it comes to those things, today I'm riding into work and it's positively mild. I have a base layer on and I have a thin autumn spring jersey on, and to be honest with you, I'm still a little bit overdressed, and that can't be right. Well then, regarding the environment and being a hippie, that just isn't how it is any longer. At least it really isn't how it needs to be. Most of us, if not all of us, are thinking about ways we can reduce our impact on the environment, and cycling seems to be a very sensible way of doing that. Of course, it's perceived as very environmentally friendly, and it is in regard to my actual journey. But what about the journey of this bike, these clothes, and the fuel that it takes to get my food into my mouth to fuel me to get in? That all creates pollution. And when it comes to the races, the Tour de France, I really can't think of anything as dreadful in terms of excessive traffic as the Tour. As amazing as it is, stood at the side of the road watching the caravan go past, watching all the lead vehicles, the police, the outriders, the press, the team cars, the team buses, the helicopters, the aeroplanes, all of those things, they all need looking at. There's no reason in my mind why in this day and age we can't use drones, we can't reduce the amount of photographers, and certainly reduce the amount of VIPs on the road that really aren't necessary. But is it a straightforward thing to try and equate riding a bike into work with driving a car into work? Well, back to James in the studio for some numbers. Thanks, James on the bike. Let's start off this section with a little bit of a caveat. Of course, these numbers are massively variable, massively subjective in terms of the materials, how far they've been traveled, the manufacturing process, the weight of things. There are so many variables that the numbers that I'm going to give in this section are going to be hugely averaging. And even if we take into account some level of tolerance here, say 10-15%, the numbers still stack up. So
For a journey into a city like Bristol in a van like our Transit Custom, we are looking at around about 200 grams of carbon emissions per kilometre driven. If I were to get the bus, we would be looking at around about 100 grams per kilometre driven. And when it comes to the bike, taking into account the manufacturing process, the transport getting that bike to me, and the fuel it takes to get me into work in terms of calories, we're looking at around about 20 grams per kilometre. So on those bare bones minimum numbers, we are looking at around about 1/10 of the carbon emissions for a van journey, and we're looking at about 1/5 of the carbon emissions for a bus journey. To add some sort of level of visual impact to this, if I were to drive 5 kilometres in my van, this is the radius from my house I could travel. If I were then to switch to my bike, this is how far I could travel for the same amount of carbon emissions. Back to James out on the bike.
So as you can see, working out the numbers, it's not as straightforward as perhaps it may at first seem. However, in the same way as I often say with aero gains, even if it's a fraction of a reduction, it's worth doing over driving a car. Now, I've also said this many times too. I'm very fortunate on my commute into work. I don't actually encounter a huge amount of traffic. And it has noticeably got fewer cars on the road since lockdown than before. That said, there hasn't been a single car that's gone past me or that I've gone past that's had more than one person in the car. Now, as you well know, if you watch the channel regularly, I used to be a carpenter, I play the drums, I'm a filmmaker. All of that stuff requires a decent amount of equipment. And of course, some people are going to need to get those things into work or onto site to be able to do their job. But even if half the people that I've gone past that only have one member of the occupancy of the car, surely that's got to be worth reducing just even half the amount of cars that are on the road. Perhaps even something as simple, for example, as this park and ride situation we've got on my right here. It's fantastic, of course, that we've got this bus route that takes people in and out of the city and reduces the car pollution issues. However, those cars have still driven to within 4 kilometres of the city centre. Surely a solution to that, maybe, and this is just an example of the sort of thing we could do. If you turn up to the car park back there to get the bus and there's only one of you in the car, you have to pay to park. If there's 2 or more of you, the parking's free. Those are the sort of simple solutions that may actually get people to think twice about getting in their car to get into work. Also, putting a few more buses on this bus route and making it cheaper would be a bloody good idea too. Those of you that watch this channel regularly will know I quite often make videos along here because it's so quiet, and that in itself is an issue, isn't it? And it'll be interesting to see in the next few weeks how the traffic reduces even further, because this usually is stacked, which is a great thing to see. It's so quiet today. And in the next few weeks they're going to be introducing a pollution charge into the city centre, which means for a normal car or a van it's going to cost £9 to drive in the city, and for a bus or a lorry it's going to cost £100 to drive in the city. So it will be intriguing. I have noticed over the last couple of weeks that it's definitely reducing. But penalising drivers isn't always the way to incentivise people to do something. Surely some way of making cycling attractive, or making your own way under your own steam, has got to be the true long-term answer. Now, when I rode from London to Paris, Sven, who owns the company, in the opening thing was talking about a way of incentivising carbon offset. I don't actually know a huge amount about it, but essentially it works along the premise that you get incentives for the amount of carbon offset you produce by sustainable means of transport. Something I'm going to look into, hopefully make a video about, and see what I can find out about it. But that, a positive approach, is always going to be a far more attractive solution to the problem than penalising people and getting the motoring lobbies backs up. So aside from convenience, one of the other things that people discuss about travelling in by motor vehicle is just how much time it saves. And to be fair, as you can see, really rather quiet on these roads, and riding along at about zone 2 approximately is an average heart rate on the way in, day out, takes me around about an hour, sometimes a little longer in the winter, sometimes a little less in the summer. Now believe me, it used to take the same, if not longer, for me to commute by vehicle. And so those are my current thoughts on the situation. Not too much news really in terms of stuff to do. But in the same way that our grandparents and their parents kind of really sacrificed themselves for the world, riding into work with some crappy weather a couple of days a year, it's not really that much of a sacrifice to make for the greater good. And thanks for watching and listening to this modern day hippie spouting on about the environment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit the notifications bell, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below, let me know whether you're doing some stuff that is making a little change here and there, because more often than not that's actually all it takes, just little changes. That decision to walk to the shops with a carrier bag rather than hop in the car. I'll see you on the next video.